wanted to address some frequently asked questions or FAQs about California's legislative publications. So first, what governs the printing of publications for the legislature in the individual houses, the Assembly and Senate? That printing is governed by the individual rules of the state Senate and the state Assembly, as well as the joint rules of the legislature. Who is charged with printing legislative measures? The Secretary of the Senate and the Chief Clerk of the Assembly are charged with printing all of the legislative measures proposed by their respective members. Who does the actual legislative printing? It's done by the OSP, the Office of State Printing, which is required by statute to print the laws, including initiative measures, as well as any other printing that's ordered by either the state Senate or the state Assembly. What is required to be included on the front of the legislative publications? Well, by statute, the officers of the Assembly, with their names and titles, must appear on the front of all Assembly publications. But there is no such statutory requirement for the officers of the Senate. However, the same procedure is used in that House. What are the daily files? They generally set forth the agendas of the Senate and Assembly. They also contain information such as committee hearing notices, measures eligible for floor action, as well as committee memberships, the number of measures introduced, deadlines, and a session schedule. What is contained in the Assembly and Senate daily journals? It is the official record of business that has been transacted in the Assembly or Senate on a daily basis. This publication shows roll call votes, notes any parliamentary motions, it lists the bill introductions, it records other official actions taken by the Assembly or Senate in committee and on the floor. What are the weekly histories? They are a publication of the Assembly and Senate that give a comprehensive list of all actions taken on each and every legislative measure and is published weekly by each house of the legislature. What is the legislative index and the table of sections affected? They're basically final editions of the legislative index and the table of sections affected, the TOSA. The legislative index provides a subject matter index of all legislative measures for the current legislative session. And TOSA, again, the table of sections affected, it provides an index of each section of the Constitution, the codes, and any uncodified laws affected by measures that have been introduced. And this starts with the 99-2000 session up until the current one. What is the statutory record? This provides an index of each section of the California Constitution, the codes, which have all of our codified statutes, as well as the uncodified laws of the state that have been affected by measures enacted by the legislature or passed by the voters. How frequently and where is the statutory record published? It indicates the year and chapter or proposition number of the affecting measure, and it's cumulative for a 10-year period. And the statutory record is published in the Summary Digest by the Office of Legislative Counsel. Now, what is the New Laws Report? It's a list of all the bills enacted in a calendar year during the regular session of the legislature, and this list identifies the bill, chapter number, lead author, and the subject matter of the measure. What is the Legislative Handbook? It contains the biographies of all current legislators and legislative officers, committee names and memberships, the Assembly rules, the Senate rules, the joint rules of the two houses. It also lists state officers, accredited press representatives, the legislative sessions, the governors of California, etc. And it's published at least once every 2-year legislative session pursuant to the California Government Code. What's the book entitled California's Legislature? It's an in-depth introduction to the legislative process and state government. It's a heavily illustrated book and is an excellent resource for students, lobbyists, state employees, and the members of the general public. The topics include the state history, constitutional and election law, term limits, state emblems, legislative procedure, the executive and judicial branches of government, and even a legislative glossary of terms. And finally, what is the publication agency reports? This provides a list of reports by various state and local agencies that are required or requested to be submitted to the legislature, the governor, or both the executive and legislative branches. And agency reports are actually maintained pursuant to the California Government Code, like a number of other legislative publications.